one to start the year at the VIP parking spot. I've already got brake caliper envy.
I do too. They're beautiful calipers.
The number one question about your other company car here, does it have the massage seats?
I wish it did, man. The Rolex 24 would be so much more comfortable with the shiatsu massage that the MDX has, but not yet. Maybe soon.
All right, so you've got some show and tell items. Grab those, and then we're going to go inside and see the new studio.
Can't wait.
Well, welcome inside the brand spanking new IMSA Endurance Hour podcast studio. You can just still smell that fresh paint. A lot of fun ahead this year. We're going to do a deep dive into the IMSA paddock. We're going to talk to all the drivers like Colin Braun, owners, mechanics, engineers, and so many more that have such fantastic stories to tell. So whether you're a new fan or a longtime generational fan, we will have something for you. A lot of fun, a lot of entertainment, and a lot of education along the way. So let's get the fun started. And Colin Braun, our very first guest on the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast 2025. You're putting the band back together. It's Myers Shank Racing 2.0, but with a lot of twists.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Pretty cool to be on the first episode here of the Endurance Hour podcast. Yeah, and pumped to get going with Myers Shank. Obviously, we had a great season in 2023 and took a year off, but, getting the band back together and putting all the pieces and parts and people and personnel back together. And can't wait to get going.
So you had the Roar, and I think by the time we take the green flag on Saturday, teams will have had, on average, about 12 hours of practice between Roar and leading up to the Rolex. When you go into the Roar, do you have an agenda, different boxes that you need to check off of different, especially with the fact that there's a lot of new people, and also on top of that, it's not a one-car team, it's a two-car team. So there's a lot of different things that you want to accomplish when you leave the Roar.
Yeah, certainly, for us scaling up to two cars, there's been a lot of new hires, a lot of new employees, a lot of new procedures and process. Mike was really forward thinking in his approach to the end of the season in 23. He kept, I think, every single employee that was part of our operation in his team throughout 2024. So, we've got the base people still there. We've just had to hire a lot of new people. So, integrating all those folks together, understanding how we're going to operate as a two-car team, down to small things like, the pit box stuff, right? I mean, with two cars, how do we choreograph, making sure we're not in each other's way? How does that work smoothly? So the Roar was a great chance for us to really work through a lot of those procedures. On the Honda HRC side, they've obviously, improved on small features and functionalities and tools within the car that we can have. So, some new things on that front to work through. Just a great chance to kind of get, back in the saddle, back in the seat, for us drivers, get some more seat time, understand the traffic. Obviously, with 60 plus cars, I mean, you're passing somebody nearly every single lap. I don't think there was many laps where you just got a clear one. So good to just get that rhythm and understand kind of where the passing zones are with the current BOP, right? Everything changes every year slightly, which makes, these runs you get where you can maybe pass a guy into the bus stop or maybe get a guy into turn one, changes it just ever so slightly where you can't make those moves or you can. And yeah, great to get a feel for all that.
You mentioned the bus stop, and it's a little bit new this year, tons of pavement back there. As far as any marks where, you have turn-in marks or braking marks, now that it's all pavement, does that change up the look from inside the cockpit?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it certainly does. Our braking reference is on the right-hand side. There's brake markers plus a kind of illuminated light panel. So that's a good reference for the brake point. But when you turn into the bus stop, with the whole thing being a sea of asphalt with, basically 1 inch tall curbing to delineate where the track goes, makes it hard to sight, especially at night. We all wanted to get some laps in at night. I mean, I've been there. This is going to be my 21st straight Rolex 24. So I've certainly done a lot of laps at night, but I was like, hey guys, even though I've done it a lot, I need to see this new bus stop and what it looks like. And Before, with it being grass in the middle of the bus stop, it was an area where you knew if you went off into the grass, you risked the chance of filling the brake ducts with dirt, debris, or having the splitter dig in and cause some damage. Now, with it being just asphalt, it's a good out for us to be able to decide, like, ooh, I don't like this scenario. I'm just going to go straight. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works in the race. Hopefully, folks don't take advantage of it. Obviously, something IMSA's got to keep an eye on and police from a shortcut, kind of standpoint. But yeah, it's definitely nice. And I think the teams like it because we don't have to worry about, getting dirt in the car anymore. So that's good.
So you're back with Tom Blomqvist, the second car, Renger Van de Zande and Nick Yellowly. And I talked to Renger and he was like, oh my gosh, this is like a military run operation. They've got like 100 people for 2 cars and everybody has the proper system and the routine. He said it is extremely efficient and unbelievably impressive. With the second car, how does that change up as far as the game plan going into a weekend? Do you have one car on one plan, the other car on a different plan, and that way you can merge the setup if one of them hits on it versus the other?
Yeah, it's very helpful for us, I would say. In 2023, it was one car. We were just doing our own thing. I don't want to say with blinders on, but you're just down the path and everyone sort of agrees.
Well, you're kind of the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, exactly. You're just doing your thing. And now with the second car, it's brought, obviously another set of engineer group, another outlook on kind of how to set things up and a different perspective. So I think for us, it's been helpful to have a new, fresh approach in a car and be able to kind of get 2x amount of tuning items, testing items, things tried. They can be working on one thing while we work on something else. We meet post session, put all that together and drive our Acuras forward, kind of twice as fast, really. And, having Nick and Renger, obviously they have a ton of experience and it's been really helpful for, I think, our whole group, just doubling the amount of miles we can do in a 1 hour practice. Instead of doing a single hour, we're 2 cars in that hour. So we just get double the data. It's been great. Really good.
So for years, it was always if you need a sponsor, all of a sudden you'll turn in an unbelievable quick lap in winter testing. But now it seems like things, with the BOP and how they test different data, it's sort of settled down. But when you look at the different, on-track results as far as each session goes, you can see some themes here or there, but for the most part, it's all agenda-driven. It's what the team was trying to accomplish and their to-do list going to Daytona. So your outlook looking ahead to the Rolex and the season, any themes that you noticed either with your camp or other teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. And man, I wish I had a crystal ball to answer all that.
Get the 8 ball, shake it up and go, no, don't like that answer. Let's shake it one more time.
It's just hard to know. I mean, we just put our heads down. We were stuck on our own agenda. For us, again, being sort of new, when you look out across the GTP teams, right? I mean, the Porsche program, that's the same as it was. The BMW, they've had small things, but, the main competition we're up against was an operating team in 2024 and has that rhythm and procedure. For us, we've either had a bit of time off or it's all new people together. So we were very focused on just process, procedure, small things, pit stop practice, driver change stuff, things like that. So we weren't so focused on the lap time. Let's be frank. I mean, in GTP, the class is so competitive and so cutthroat that it's tight. It's so tight. So hard to really say. Obviously, the BMWs were quite quick. We were quick with our Acura. We feel good about things. And, I think IMSA's done a nice job with the BOP stuff and the torque sensors in our GTP cars to keep it tight and competitive. And, I think the days of all the gamesmanship are definitely less and less and less every year. I mean, there's just such a small, narrow window of performance, and IMSA can see anything that we're doing. So it's just, I think they've done a really good job making it, where you just go out and drive your car and they do their jobs and we do ours, and it always generates a competitive race.
So you go back 5, 6, 7 years ago to the Roar, and it had a certain feel. Like, well, this is kind of a test and tune weekend. It's real laid back. And then you go back to the Roar 2025. It felt like a race weekend. I mean, the intensity of the teams, but even more so, the crowd and the energy within the paddock as far as the fans walking through the fan zone. I mean, cars would come in off pit lane after a session, and it was like the Rolex 24 will be race morning. Crowds just lined the garages, and you could barely get through. What's it like on race day for the Rolex when you're walking along with your team and you're pushing the car up pit lane, up the grid, and it's just a sea of humanity?
It's a great way to put it. It's incredible. I mean, IMSA's done such a good job with the momentum of the series of sports car racing. Obviously GTP plays a big part in that. But you're right. I mean, the energy down there and the amount of people was crazy. And I think, it goes hand in hand. I think IMSA's always been about great access to the cars and the drivers and the teams for the fans. And I think that's something that, it sort of snowball effect grows because people come out and they see how great the racing is, how close you can get to what's going on, how cutting edge the cars are. And that makes them want to continue to come out, bring their friends. And every year it's just more and more and more, folks coming out that have a ton of interest. And yeah, it makes it exciting, for us for sure. I mean, we were walking there on like Saturday afternoon, walking back from one of the practice sessions, and they have the crowd barriers up to keep the cars and, all the fans separated so that the guys can just get the cars back into the garage. I mean, there's that many people. So yeah, huge hats off to IMSA. It's definitely cool to be part of.
One thing I look back to last year in 2024, it felt like, you've got a certain age average as far as the IMSA demographic, the fan. I felt like last year it took quite a few notches down because I've seen so many more kids in the paddock over the course of a race weekend. And, PJ Hyett will be on the show coming up, and with the whole prehistoric force that they've got between Rexy and Roxy and then Spike, all that they do with kids. But in general, when you look at the fan, it's so incredible. Does it take you back to when you were first bitten by the racing bug?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember walking around there as a little kid. My dad was a race engineer back in the day when I was, 3, 4, 5 years old. I remember, going around just kind of being that little kid, looking around, thinking, wow, there's this famous driver and this car. And yeah, it's so cool, and it always brings me back when I see that happening, sort of to how cool of a job that we have. I mean, I think we often all probably take it for granted that, we're here racing and getting to do something so cool. And, you do it year after year and it kind of becomes your normal regular job, and you're focused on, finding speed in our Acura or this media obligation or this or that. But, those moments take me back to those days, and you got to just sit there and take it all in and go, wow, this is pretty special that we get to come here to an event like this, and this is what we get to do for a living. It's special for sure.
Now that you're a dad, and Roxanne takes up a lot of time, and it's all cool moments that are priceless, but does it make you appreciate in a way even more so what you have as far as a job and what you and your dad had, the special moments together, and now you're having something similar? Because I can tell you, when we were at your man cave garage workout room combo, I mean, he's already in a car.
It's sad. I mean, that was expensive for me.
Driver coaching, I can already see right now the invoice coming out. You might have to time stamp it a little bit.
I was going to say, I don't know how it's going to work. I feel like, maybe I just get a cut of his future earnings or something like that. I'll have to work some deal out with him when he can talk finally.
How has he changed you, though, as a driver? Does it allow you to totally check out from the pressures that come with the day job, which then make you even better when you clock in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for me, in many ways, I don't know that a whole ton has changed. It's, kind of changed my off time to, enjoying doing things with him and, being excited about, kind of doing mundane things that I never really thought about, before we had a kid. And yeah, it's, but when I go to work, I'm doing my thing, and it certainly makes me, I think when the day is done, more excited to get back home and, get back to whatever he's into. And yeah, we're having a blast, and, it's certainly neat to see, when you're at the racetrack, the dads and the kids coming out. And I don't know, I kind of thought maybe that you mentioned the age going down of the fan. I thought it was just because I had a kid, and I see kids now more than I feel like I did before. But no, it's neat. I'm looking forward to having him down for the race. He's going to come and check it out. And, he definitely loves, he's a car nut right now. So hopefully, hopefully that doesn't continue for too long. Otherwise, I feel like the go-karting and all that's going to be expensive.
It's going to be expensive. You have to add years to your career just to pay for it all.
Yeah.
You go back and you mentioned your first time in Daytona Speedweeks as a driver. I think back to like Team 16, a bunch of 16-year-olds. But you fast forward now, what you would do then with just such raw talent, now you have to think outside the box. And if you look at your garage man cave, I mean, it is like a very efficient workout room. And, I saw a 50-degree plunge tank. You've got it all going on, the sim rig. And I really love the different tools that you use to work certain muscles, like your rock wall here.
I mean, you got to have a climbing wall in your gym, right? Any serious athlete.
What about 10 feet tall, something like that?
It's all about the angles, right?
Exactly.
It's all about the angles.
Yep. Roxon's on that, but there's the plunge tank. Just so many different tools that you use to make yourself better as an athlete behind the wheel.
Yeah. I mean, I think people don't always realize in this kind of level of sports car racing. I mean, we're in these cars for 2 or 3 hours at a time. We all wear heart rate monitors. Your heart rate's 150, 160 beats a minute. So you need a gym facility like that to take your training, seriously. I love the cold plunge. That's been huge. That's kind of new for me. I've started doing that in the last kind of year, but man, the recovery that I've been able to get from doing the cold plunge stuff.
Did anybody special put you on to the whole cold plunge?
No.
I
just read about it and I hear about it. And then I was like, I'm going to try this. And I first did it and it was incredibly miserable. And I felt like, why am I getting in this freezing cold water?
That kind of conversation you have with Mel, you're what? You know what? I was reading in this magazine article about this cold plunge thing. We should get one for the garage.
I did. I said, we should get one and you should do it first because I want to see how bad it is. It's miserable, but man, the effects after are incredible. And, even from a mental standpoint, right? I mean, it's something that it helps just get you mentally tough. Yeah, the recovery is great. And I think it's something you got to do. I mean, all sports car drivers at this level are looking for a little edge, a little something that can, help them train harder, be better in the car. Yeah. So I think it's, it's kind of a fun aspect of things to do outside the car that can help you when you're doing your job.
So there's always things that happen at a racetrack or during a race. And there are always something like, man, I just hope no one was seeing that, because there's always things that pop up that are a little bit embarrassing. I'll go first.
Okay.
I was at Bristol at the night race and someone had blown up. They'd driven through the infield and I was walking from the backstretch pits to Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s pit on the front. And when I was climbing up the ladder, I'd already kind of got the interview set up with his crew chief, Pete Rondeau. And I go to put a step up on the ladder. The next step up, because I had oil on the bottom of my shoes, my foot went through the ladder. I flew back, fell 3 steps down. And the thing that hit my mind, I'm going, oh God, I hope nobody was watching. In the meantime, when I look up, everybody in the box, pure horror, because they think, head injuries, and I almost hit the generator. So, I mean, it really could have been bad. So, that was one of my many embarrassing moments at a racetrack.
It happens.
What about you? Do you have anything that might pop into your head?
I mean, I have a lot that pop into my head. Of those that I want to share, probably the one that pops to my head the first would be I was doing my first big ARCA large track test. So I'd done a couple for Roush Fenway in the ARCA car, some short tracks here in the Charlotte area. But we went to our first 1.5 miles to go test. I was super pumped up because I thought, man, this is going to be great. Never done a big track like that in a stock car before. Backed out of the garage, driving down the pit lane to go out onto the track, and noticed that the steering wheel was a little bit offset on the quick disconnect. And
oh, you didn't?
And in sports car racing, you can readjust that steering wheel going straight because the thing tracks straight, no problem. Pop it on, pop it back off. So I didn't even think about it. I popped the steering wheel off in the ARCA car, and man, it turned hardcore to the left, like bang.
It's got all that stagger built in.
Yeah, it just And as soon as I popped the wheel off, I was like, exactly what you said. I was like, oh, that was dumb. That was bad. That was bad. The thing starts just spinning like that. I'm trying to stab the steering wheel back on. And of course, it's spinning so fast, it won't hook back up. So I threw the steering wheel to the passenger side and then tried to grab with my gloves the steering shaft and try to steer it back straight. That didn't work. I'm on the brakes as hard as I can. Sure enough, I hit the wall. Not super hard, but enough where, I hit the wall and like, I'm going to have to come clean about this. We're going to have to, talk about it. So I keyed up the radio to my crew chief and I said, hey, I crashed. And he goes, I'm on the top of the truck. You're not even on the track yet. And I said, unfortunately, I crashed into the pit lane. I'm not on the track. And he's just like, you silly boy. Okay, bring this thing back to me. They fixed it up. We ended up going, I think, fastest in that test. So they kind of forgot about it, but I have not. That was pretty embarrassing.
Well, one thing that I love when you go through all the different series that you come across at an IMSA event, all the different classes, is drivers and their helmets, because that's their identity. And you can easily pick out different people because so often a driver like you will have a certain design and they will wear that for the majority of their career. So for your lid, unique colors and designs, walk us through a little bit about the thought process of your brand identity, so to speak, with your helmet.
Yeah, you're right. And it's neat to see kind of the evolution, I think, of drivers' helmets. Some change drastically, some change a little bit. I've kind of had a similar design ever since I was a tiny kid racing go-karts. On the side, I kind of have a C with the colors there on the top part of the side. So that's kind of been my, very individual and persistent theme of my helmet is that I loved the color green as a kid. My dad, when I was coming up with this design, he was engineering Fermin Velez, who was a famous sports car driver back then. And his helmets were always red and yellow. So I thought, man, it'd be cool to sort of incorporate that color into what I've been doing. And then, I think the rest of it just kind of evolved slowly over time. As I've gotten more and more helmets done, the artists, the painters, they get bored and they add in a little flair here and there. And,
because they want to make it extra special and top what they did before.
Exactly. If they painted the same thing over again,
and they're in a competition with the other helmet painters, like, hey, did you see my new lid I did for so-and-so? Pretty rad, huh?
So I've always been kind of strict on trying to keep the same colors. I've changed what is the blue. I've added either a little more white, a little more blue, but always kind of the same theme. You can definitely distinctly tell a Colin helmet to somebody else. But it's been neat to kind of see what the artist can come up with. I've been with Indocile Art for many, many years. And, he knows me enough now where he knows he has like a bit of freedom, but he can't go too crazy to change it up. But yeah, always special. I'm excited. I'm going to actually go pick up my new helmet here after the show. And I think he's done a little bit crazy on this one coming up.
Typical helmet painter. You got to be careful. It might still be tacky.
I guarantee you it will. You always tell these guys, hey, I need it for Daytona, and they get it done the day you leave for the race.
Can I ship it down to you? Yeah. One thing I noticed that stood out when I was in your garage checking out all your trophies and toys and everything was your VW Beetle. I did a year, as Larry Dixon would say. He's like, wow, I didn't know you did a year in the Valley. I went to Granada Hills High School, and there were so many cool VW bugs with the cow look. And when I saw yours, it definitely had some upgrades over the typical cow look. Carbon fiber worked into that?
You have to, right? We're a racing family. My dad, my brother, and I kind of restored this thing when we were back living in Texas when I was a kid. And yeah, carbon fiber running boards, carbon fiber around the tail lights. And that's not like fake carbon. That is real carbon. So we thought those were cool touches. It was a super fun project to restore, and it's been with our family for a long, long time. So it's pretty cool.
Just think if you had a CNC machine in your garage, what trouble you could get into as well. It's probably really good that you don't.
I've tried to. I've told my wife I think that's a good investment for the family, and she disagrees.
Well, certainly a cool ride. And another cool ride that'll be down at Daytona is the Multimatic Mustangs. They looked great last year. But there's always a late-breaking story, it seems like, when we get ready for the Rolex. And one of those was in the off-season, Ben Barker in the 64 had a skiing accident, broke his collarbone. So he was out. And so what do? They go to the bullpen from the Ford camp, Austin Cindric, two-time Michelin pilot winner, Daytona 500 champion. So they called him out of the bullpen. And, it's all about location. And it works out perfect because right across the street from our new studio is the Ford Performance Tech Center. And we caught up with Austin while he was in the sim, logging some laps, getting ready, doing some homework for the Rolex 24.
Well, I definitely thought there was a good chance I was watching the Rolex 24 this year from my couch on NBC, but yeah, definitely a lot to get ready for in a short amount of time, getting integrated with everybody in Multimatic Motorsports and Ford Performance. I'm standing here at the Ford Performance Tech Center in Concord, North Carolina. I probably spend more time here than I do with my immediate family throughout the year. So definitely used to being here, but first time on the GT3 Buck, which has been really great for kind of integrating to the systems. It's the same exact steering wheel, all the dash jettings. I've gone through the 36-page manual of all the systems and how to run the car and what to do in certain situations. So it's really good to be able to do that in real time, but obviously cut laps, reintegrate with myself with the track. There's last time I was there was 2023 and curbing's a bit different than the bus stops, or try a few things with that and, learn the car the best that I can, because my goal for this and being here and really the last 2 weeks is been to make myself as integrated as possible with the team without ever driven the car. I don't want us to waste any time on getting me up to speed where Rocky and Seb can kind of continue the development of the car and in the program. So it's special for me to come back. 10 years ago, I what's now the Michelin Pilot Challenge, I started with Multimatic and Ford, and that relationship is obviously stayed pretty strong for a while here, and to get the call up to do this race is super cool for me because there's a lot of familiar faces. Sebby and I have won in the Michelin Pilot Challenge together in the GT4 Mustangs. So, like I said, a lot of familiarity, but a big opportunity ahead for me. I look at this as one of my best opportunities, especially as a full-time Cup Series driver, to kind of jump into a top program and have a shot to win.
When you look at technology and how the sim is such a valuable tool, especially for a situation like this, and Austin told me during his time in the sim rig, basically he would be in the banking with the steering wheel because it's unlike obviously his Cup car because you've got all the tuning tools. And he was purposely turning knobs, turning them back when he was in the banking just to get the muscle memory used to making adjustments and not just focused on that type of situation. But for someone like him, even with his experience, there's a lot of new things that you've got to try to check off your list to get acclimated.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, Austin, great race car driver. He's going to be fast. He's going to do a great job. But, the advantage of having these sims, it's incredible. I mean, we have one, obviously, for the Acura GTP car, and the number of switches and dials and, adjustments that we have to make as drivers in these cars. You have to get to the point where making those adjustments is second nature, and you can do it without looking down at the steering wheel, making that adjustment. Daytona is a tough one too, because you're in the banking, you're flat out, you're not on the limit of the car, but there's a lot of weird G-force that's coming into the car when you're at that high bank angle. And so just moving your hand over to the dash, trying to make an adjustment, there's such weird G-force going on that you've really got to know exactly where you're going and be able to make that adjustment. With him in the GT class, he's going to be being passed by the P2s, by the GTPs. He'll probably be 3 wide in that banking a lot of times. And, you've got to make that adjustment when the engineer calls for it. And having that experience, taking it from the sim is huge.
And you talk about just technology and how things are different. You go back to, all right, basically the seat and the pedals and the steering wheel, it's this far away, and you've got to adjust with a seat insert. Now, like in the GT cars, you can slide the foot box, but still the seat is so important as far as fit so you don't get cramps. And one thing I noticed down at the Roar, it was Arts and Crafts 2025 for Austin Cindric as he started making his own seat insert. And it was certainly very popular as a lot of people were enjoying the entertainment, but a lot goes into making the seat insert. Usually you'll pull out a carving knife, a little chisel here or there, but it's pretty crazy all that goes into such a small piece that fits in the seat.
Big time. I mean, as these cars have gotten faster, we've learned more about the safety aspects of things. I think the seat and the seat insert and that whole package has become just more and more important. Being comfortable, as hard as we're driving these cars for 24 hours, you need to have a really great seat. And, making these seat inserts, you mix up the foam into a kind of a garbage bag, jump in the car, let it expand, and then you got to trim away all the excess. And yeah, I've always found as a race car driver, if you start walking around with a carving knife, there is no faster way to get the attention of the mechanics who don't trust you to do anything anyway, let alone with a giant knife in your hand. They come over and start helping you carve that right up. So that's a good trick by Austin. For sure.
It's like, let me just take care of this. You just watch. We got it. And that's exactly what it is. When he finally had his insert done, and then the pros came in. And
they don't want a driver with no finger.
Exactly.
Not helpful.
So what's the process when you sit basically in the big, Ziploc bag, so to speak, that has all of the elements inside that, you're going to go through a process. So walk us through that process of making the insert.
Yeah. So they'll take a garbage bag, kind of put it in the big seat, and then mix up that material, dump it into the garbage bag while you're sitting in there, kind of sitting up high, so that when they throw all that liquid in there, as it starts to foam up, you got to kind of find the right point to sit back into that foam. And then becomes the hard part. You got to sit there in the right position, not let that foam push you around too much so that it fills in the gaps, and then obviously goes, out and starts to expand, outside your seat area. And then you just sit in there for a few minutes, let it harden up, and then trim away all that excess. And man, it is custom made, perfect for you. The guys that do it day in and day out do such a good job. It makes it a pretty fast little process.
And that's why they are the pros. But it's so key because whether it's a sprint race for IMSA or it's a WeatherTech endurance race, the insert is so important because of cramping. Have you ever had a situation like that where you've had a cramping situation where it might change up how long you're in the car before your co-driver gets back in?
Fortunately for me, either I just have toughed it out or I don't care. I just, I want to win so bad. I'm willing to go through it. I've always been okay, but I think also it comes down to doing the right preparation with these seats, making these small adjustments. I think, it's tough for drivers. Sometimes we get a hard time from the mechanics about, hey, I need this little padding or I need this little adjustment in the cockpit. But those little tweaks and changes are what, can make a huge difference when you're in the car for as long as we are, and you need to be performing at 100% the whole time. So yeah, I think the good mechanics realize, hey, this guy needs a little tweak. I'm happy to do it. He'll pay for it later for sure with good performance.
Well, when you're talking about winning, there's one team that won last year, not only on the track, but off, and that was AO Racing. And PJ Hyett's going to stop by next to talk about 2024 and all the cool things that took place, but also looking ahead to 2025. Now, if you're a fan of the sport, you certainly over the past 2 years have seen a lot of incredible sights in the paddock area, also on the racetrack, from the land of prehistoric force. Yeah, we've got the high-tech stuff, but we've got the dragon, we've got the dinosaurs, so we've got Spike the Dragon and Rexy and Roxy, the dinosaur cars from AO Racing, which the kids have just absolutely flocked to. And PJ Hyett and Gunnar Jeanette, they have really created such a cool culture within the WeatherTech, paddock, and you see it. The kids line up, and that's where we talked about the demographic. It seems like the age has gone down massively because all these kids are migrating to those cars. And so it certainly has changed the fan base. And with those iconic schemes and so much more that goes into the event of an IMSA WeatherTech weekend. So we welcome now the co-owner of AO Racing, PJ Hyett, joins the show. PJ, first, I got to say, not only did you win the GTD Pro Championship last year, you also had a big win as the inaugural winner of a prestigious Team Marketing Achievement Award in recognition for your on-track excellence and fan-friendly presence. And I don't think anybody was, better suited to score that award because of all the incredible things that you guys have done with the dinosaur and the, the dragon. Incredible season.
Well, I appreciate that. And first, let me say thanks for having me on. Well, let's just say it's been an absolute roller coaster ride, given how little we've been doing this. This is only our third season in IMSA. To have, enjoyed such amazing success within a short amount of time, both on track and off track, between the marketing award that you're describing, but then also winning the GTD Pro Championship, it's exceeded our wildest expectations. So for us at AO Racing, I mean, it's like a dream come true. That I'd love to take credit for all the character stuff that we're doing. I love to give my kids all the credit for it. I was just trying to put a smile on their face because daddy's out racing all the time. And it's much easier to recognize the cars when they look like fun characters as opposed to any other sort of wild graphics. So for us, having these characters run around track was just kind of an homage to my kids. But the reality is it's taken off in such a special way with fans around the world that, the reaction has been overwhelming. And so for us, we want to do more of it. We want to get more fan engagement. We want to get more people attracted to the sport that we love so much, sports car racing. And whatever we can do to help, we're here for it. So, yeah, hats off to the kids for encouraging me to have these fun characters. But the reality is, it's through the hard work and dedication of the team to make these dinosaurs go faster on the racetrack, to win these races, to win the championships. But then also the marketing with my co-founder Gunnar, that we've just knocked it out of the park, and we're so excited about how many people are just enthusiastic about what we're doing. We absolutely love it.
When you look at the fans, and you've got the autograph session at the track, but also the diecast, and we've got, Rexy and Roxy. And when you look at the diecast of the cars and you pick up all the little things that maybe you might not notice at the racetrack because it's there in front of you, there's so many different points of interest. But when you look, you've got the tail on the roof that, some people might not even notice. And when you look at just all of the different things that you're doing, when did you say to yourself, wow, we are really onto something here?
Honestly, it was the first day that we rolled it out for the Sebring 12-hour. We couldn't believe it. We honestly couldn't believe it. The fan reaction day one was simply overwhelming. Gunnar had come up with all these fun ideas. Let's get some inflatable green dinosaurs walking around amongst the crowd during the grid walk, during the autograph session. Let's get some palm trees going. And he's crafting these all of this imagery around the liveries themselves to try to add to that fan experience. And I think it became sort of this immediate hit because it's just something different. And so when parents were coming up to us during the autograph session, they were just thanking us for doing something different, to not be taking it so seriously, that this is why they're here. They're excited that we're doing something different, that we're having fun, that the kids are excited about coming. And so for us, it was sort of an overnight success. And so as we've continued to roll out new liveries with Spike, our LMP2 car, or just trying to do more fan engagement where the kids can hop in the car and get their pictures taken, and we're doing giveaways and stuff like that. It's just these lines get longer and longer and longer at these autograph sessions because more and more families are just excited about coming and seeing what we're up to.
You were in the same series or the same class last year. So during the autograph session, you saw all the people in line.
Well, that's where I was just going to go, PJ, was we happened to be next to PJ with the LMP2 guys there last year at Daytona. I had just come off winning the race overall the year prior, so I expected to have a decently long line. But man, we ran through our line. I looked over at PJ and they have it's completely just stretched way out. And I'm sitting there with nobody to sign and all the people are over here. And I'm not a big ego guy. I don't really care, but I'm sitting there
to crush you a little bit.
I'm sitting there like, man, I would have thought that I'd have a few people over here. Like some kid would be all pumped up after, high-fiving the dinosaur and walked just past me, and I'm like, oh, okay, see ya. Hope you had fun. I felt like a greeter more than another driver.
PJ, it's a lot like when people line up around the block for a concert, and I'll walk through the paddock, and you got a sign up that says, autograph session is this time. There are people there first thing in the morning in line, just hoping to get a shot when the car leaves the hauler, but also, might get a chance to see you or the drivers, and the blow up dinosaurs that walk around. I mean, it's the total package of fun.
Well done.
The irony of what you guys are talking about is, like, Colin, I'm a huge fan of yours. Like, I'm
a huge fan of yours.
I sort of walk in the footsteps of the pro drivers, day in and day out, just being amazing on track. And for guys like me that have the opportunity to race on the same racetracks as guys like you is an absolute honor for me. But I do think it is funny, the lines that the AO crew has been able to attract, because if you think about, I love telling this story. We were at Watkins last year, Watkins Glen, for the 6 hour, and we were sat for the autograph session right next to the Ferrari crew, and one of the drivers, and I'm embarrassed, I don't remember the guy's name now. It'll come to me as soon as we're finished recording this, but he had just won Le Mans. Like the weekend prior. Overall, Ferrari wins first time in 50 or 60 years. He's sitting right next to us. There's nobody waiting for his autograph. We have a line around the trailer because we've got music playing, we've got inflatable dinosaurs, we're having a great time. And to me, that was one of the more surreal moments of this whole journey of AO racing and doing these fun characters. Is I'm sitting there thinking, this is, one of the world's greatest sports car drivers, and I've got a line around the AO trailer right now because they're excited about what we're doing. So I think for me, it's one of those things is I absolutely love racing cars. I want to do it for the rest of my life. I know we all love racing cars, and we would do it if there was nobody in the stands, just because we absolutely love doing this. But the fact of the matter is, if I can get more people in the stands, I can get more people excited about what we're doing, I can build a new generation of fans with the little kids that are excited about our characters. To me, it's sort of a rising tide lifts all boats situation. So I'm in my small way, I feel like I'm trying to contribute as best as I can to the sport in general.
When you look at IMSA, PJ, it's so inclusive. No matter your talent level, there's a place for you within some class or some series throughout an IMSA race weekend. And the gentleman driver is legendary, within IMSA, so many incredible folks through the years. Now, as a software designer, when did you get bitten by the racing bug and all of a sudden you're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. This is my passion now, and this is how I'm going to go about it. But how did the racing bug bite you?
I mean, to be clear, I've been a lifelong car guy, absolutely obsessed with cars. I didn't have family into cars. My dad didn't own a car dealership. I don't know the normal sort of stereotypical way folks get into racing, but I never had any of that growing up. I just loved cars. Like the moment, well, actually before I had my driver's license, I bought a car and started driving it because I loved them. I loved the freedom of it. I loved the passion around it. I was rebuilding small block Chevys in my parents' garage in high school. I just absolutely love cars in general and have always done so. And so the yin and yang of my life is I'm this huge computer nerd, but I really liked working with my hands on mechanical stuff, on cars, driving cars. But the racing thing really, as we all know, it's expensive. And so for me, it wasn't something, circuit racing was never something I could afford to do growing up. It wasn't until later in life when I had the software company that had become successful that I was able to start doing track days and things like that. We were based out of San Francisco, so I started going up to Sonoma Raceway and doing track days, and just absolutely fell in love with going around racetracks. I was just like, I need to spend the rest of my life doing this if I have the opportunity to do it. And sure enough, if you fast forward to a couple of years ago, befriended Gunnar Jeanette, and he was sort of the the main enabler of all of this. That he was like, you're actually pretty good at this. Why don't we do this more seriously? And here we are now. In 2025, we've got a championship winning race team, and hopefully we can do it again this year.
Well, I was going to say, PJ, like you talked earlier about kind of walking in the shadow of the pro driver, but man, your season in 2024 personally in the LMP2 car was incredible. I mean, the amount of, poles you had, the laps that you were able to put together, like, man, I'm super impressed. Like, I think often the pro drivers overshadow, a lot of the storylines in LMP2, but, your performances, your job, in short order, what you've been able to accomplish is incredible, super, super impressive. But I guess my question I want to ask is, obviously you're a team owner on the GTD side and in the driver's seat on the LMP2 side. I know driving one car, the amount of pressure and stress and like things that go on. How do you split up? Like you're driving the P2 car, you're owning the GTD car. Like you've got a lot of pressure and stress on a, already stress.
He compartmentalizes a lot.
You must. How do you do that?
Well, you put the GT car in the capable hands of the crew that we've built, the drivers that Porsche provides and that we've hired, and you put your faith in an absolute stellar group of people that continue week in and week out to perform at their absolute best. So I think for me, I don't wear my owner cap when I'm at the racetrack. I put on my driver cap, and I want to go as fast as humanly possible in my P2 car, and I've trained hard. I practice hard. I'm on the sim. Like I'm doing everything that you need to do to try to go from, zero experience to hopefully getting pole and winning races in sort of as truncated of a timeline as possible. But I will say this, the races where P2 and GTD are not racing, and I do have my owner cap on, like let's say at VIR last year, those races I don't do very well at, just being the owner. So it was actually a wonderful opportunity to participate in the historic NASCAR race that they did at VIR that weekend. And I raced this awesome Chase Elliott NASCAR just as a distraction, because to be honest, I'm really not good. I like having the distraction of being in the P2 car as opposed to just watching the GT car go around. But the reality is, like, the team that we've assembled on the GTD Pro side, to take nothing away from the P2 side, because I also love those guys. They're my guys and women. But the GTD Pro team is unbelievably top-notch. And so I know they're going to do a phenomenal job, whether I'm stressed out about it or not.
That's good. I love it.
Well, the Rolex 24 is next, and you mentioned polls, and I go back to last year and really the importance of social media. And I think this sums up why you and your teammates, won the award. Because when you go back, Rexy won the pole, and a father had tweeted that his 5-year-old son, who had passed away a few months before, had started kindergarten, and he had a Rexy shirt the first day of school. And Cale, Anthony's father, said he felt like that, Anthony was riding along with Rexy when they won the pole. And your social media team picked up on that. And your bunch put Anthony's name on the roof of the car. And then at Watkins Glen, Anthony's parents, Cale and Liz, came and met the team and thanked them, made a special Rexy hat because of the importance in the healing process. And they felt like you guys gave them so much through the toughest time that they wanted to give back to you and your team. And I think that sums up just the enormity of how you have impacted so many families across racing with a little idea from your kids that you basically have brought into the IMSA culture, and it's just simply exploded. And that's the type of moment that I think is so proud to see from everyone in IMSA.
Well, I absolutely appreciate you mentioning that whole race weekend was very special and touching to us as a father, knowing the absolute heartbreak they were going through. with their son. Anything that we could do to support them and to call that out was an absolute honor for us. And so we partner with the Austin Hatcher Foundation. We're taking Rexy to hospitals and children's hospitals to try to give back to the communities that we race in. And so for us, I think just understanding that, like, in many ways, the fans are coming to these events as an escape. They've got stuff going on in their lives. They just want to root for something. They want to be a part of something. And so that's, again, another reason why I think having, these unique liveries, things that kids are excited about in particular, this is all sort of part of the broader picture of what we're trying to accomplish, not just winning races, but also giving fans something to get excited about. So yeah, absolutely. It's something we're very passionate about.
And you guys are doing a great job in the car, out of the car. Like, keep it up, PJ.
And it's all about moments, and so many moments that you can make a connection for a young fan. And from that moment on, boom, they're locked in to sports car racing. Well, PJ, Daytona is certainly on the horizon. Good luck, not only down at the Rolex, but also on the season ahead. And thanks for stopping by the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you guys. Thanks so much for having me on. And fingers crossed. We've got a big season ahead and very, very lofty goals.
Keep up the good work, man.
All right. Thanks, PJ.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Certainly it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see what AO Racing has in store for the IMSA fan base in 2025 in the paddock, but also on the racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. We talked about it during the interview, right? I mean, what they've done from a brand perspective, but also what PJ's done as a driver himself. I mean, what a year he had in 2024. And I think we all expect big things out of him and the whole P2 group there for 2025.
Well, we're expecting big things out of you too. You got a sister car, no excuses. I mean, all the data, the information, all the different minds to bounce stuff off of, but also just the excitement to have Mike Shank back in the paddock with a pair of cars is going to be exciting for you guys, but also the fans.
I was going to say, man, Mike is such a great team owner to drive for as a driver, but also I would think as a fan. I mean, he's just so raw, so real. You know exactly what he's thinking, and he's just such a racer's racer. I mean, he's like, at the roar, just itching to get on the track and get going, and he's such a great cheerleader for our whole group. And he's done, I think, almost every job there is to do in racing. I mean, he's driven trucks, he's been a mechanic, he's driven the race car, like he's done everything there is. So, you can always lean on him and his perspective and advice, and knows what all the guys are going through, and just is a great motivator for.
I mean, you could stick him at the gate entrance to the paddock and he could be like the greeter. I mean, he is Mr. Positivity no matter the situation. And he always tells you what he thinks, which I love.
I love it. I mean, you just know where you stand. You never, ever go, man, I wonder what Mike's thinking right now. He's a great guy.
Well, good luck on trying to get another watch down at Daytona, and appreciate you stopping by the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great times. I'm looking forward to watching and listening to more IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. It's going to be great.
Well, when we come back, we're going to head into the deadline room with some late breaking news from our man, the professor, Marshall Pruett, when he stops by next. Closing out the first edition of the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast, and we've got to check in with our pal, the professor, Marshall Pruett, host of This Week in Sports Cars with Marshall Pruett and Graham Goodwin. And Marshall, I've got to say, it just seems like this January, more so than others, there's so much more renewed enthusiasm, energy, excitement. Just can't wait for the season to get rolling. When you were packing up your suitcase, did you feel the same?
Oh, this is first day of school type stuff. Everybody's got on their new clothes, their new digs. Granted, if you're in school, hopefully you aren't shaving too much, but you get shaved, you get all gussied up and ready to go. Brand new liveries, new teams, manufacturers moving from one to the other, driver changes. It is legitimately the most fun time of the year, other than the very end when we get to Motul Petit Le Mans and get to celebrate the champions crown for all the amazing work they've done throughout the year. But yeah, Matt, this is the fun part. You show up, everybody is brimming with energy, not exhausted. But then what do? Hey, let's go do a 24-hour race to start the year and exhaust ourselves. But yeah, the energy, not only the start of the year, this is the fact every year in January going to Daytona, but IMSA in particular, and we're not blowing smoke. The energy in IMSA, the buzz, the vibe, it's been amazing really over the last 2 years, and it's continuing this year. So loving where the series is at.
So many people have asked me, oh, tell me more. I want to go to a race. Which one should I go to? As the excitement, and the interest continues to build. And there's always one driver, because you mentioned all the changes that we always have in the offseason. There's always one driver that walks up to his old car and then realizes it's not his new car, and he tries to play it off because there's just so much newness, and talking about things that are possibly new. And I always love following you. Breaking news over the past week and a half here, you've had several huge bylines. Number one, I remember when I was a kid, I had framed a Ford Probe GTP car in my bedroom, and you were talking about maybe Ford going with a GTP in the future?
Ford is indeed working on developing a GTP program, something that we believe would also run in the FIA WEC, the hypercar class there, building to the LMDH regulations. A little bit more cost efficiency there. A spec hybrid unit, that's really important to manufacturers. But yes, Ford, which thankfully came back to GT racing from a factory standpoint in 2025 with the glorious Mustang GT3s continuing this year, they are indeed working on making a GTP car to join. We don't know the exact year. They haven't confirmed, right? I did reach out to a Ford spokesperson who said, we don't comment on speculation. That's a very different statement than a no. But indeed, excited to hear in the background. And obviously would not publish a story like that without it being well sourced. Waiting and hoping to hear our friends at the Blue Oval will indeed confirm they're getting ready to come and join us in the top class in IMSA, which, for what we love in GT racing, that General Motors versus Ford dynamic, looking like we might have that in the top category here very soon between Cadillac and Ford. So really excited. And they're not alone, Matt. Another story here. McLaren.
This is what I love. Number one, you're saying we got a chance because there was no. And then I always equate it to when we were kids in school, the cool kids table at lunch, everybody wanted to sit there. And could we have a little bit of papaya orange headed in a much bigger program in IMSA?
That's in the works as well. So no official statements, hasn't been confirmed. I can tell you before publishing that story, it was impeccably sourced. We'll put it that way. So we know, waiting formal confirmation, but we know that McLaren has engaged Dallara to make a chassis. We know that United Autosports, wonderful LMP2 team, also runs GT cars in Europe. United Autosports will be the factory service provider for that. Looking at something like a 2027 debut, understand it would be in the FIA WEC first and IMSA to follow. Almost identical plan, if not identical plan, just 1 year later than our friends at Hyundai with the Genesis brand and their new car that's coming to GTP. They're going to do WEC for the first season. WEC, FIA WEC World Endurance Championship being great partners of IMSA. European, Asian-based here between McLaren in the UK, South Korean here with Hyundai, looking to do something more in their region first and then come here. So between Ford, between what we have in the works already with McLaren, with Hyundai through Genesis having confirmed they will be here, with Aston Martin joining us here shortly, debuting at Sebring, there's at least one other manufacturer, Matt won't mention, but and tracking that in the background as well on the GTP front. Just to close on this, and as I ended one of the articles about this,
IMSA's going to have some real thinking to do here in the coming years, because with GTP exploding in popularity and seemingly all of the world's auto manufacturers wanting to join in and fight against each other here, IMSA's going to have a lot of cars to try and fit into a lot of races. There might have to be some hard decisions made, because we can't run everybody unless we want to build like a mezzanine level at Daytona and Sebring, where there's two kind of Hot Wheel type tracks of cars running at different times above each other. But we're going to crazy places here. Who knew? We hoped it was going to be like this when GTP was announced and then launched. So exciting times ahead.
I mean, it's been ludicrous speed, the amount of manufacturers that want to jump into IMSA. And closing it out here, Marshall, Vassar, Sullivan, Lexus. Everybody has been waiting for, it seems like several years, for the new car. So when can Jimmy Vassar and Sully Sullivan expect to see that new car hit the track in those beautiful Lexus colors?
So first point, the amazing RCF GT3, the oldest chassis running in IMSA's WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, debuted.
I mean, we could almost do it in HSR.
Yes, I mean, I'm gonna leave that one alone. 2017 is when that chassis debuted. Different provider for Lexus. The minute it moved into Vassar Sullivan's hands, I believe, and I might be off by one track, but I believe in the hands of Vassar Sullivan, that Lexus RCF GT3 sedan has won at every single track on the IMSA calendar. And again, I might be off by one, but that's an amazing distinction by one team running, the only ones running that car here. But it is indeed getting ready to retire, hopefully head into IMSA's HSR, historic sports car racing series. There's been this amazing car that was debuted, I think, about a year ago. I apologize the exact timing, Matt, but it's called the Toyota GT3 GR, Gazoo Racing. We don't know exactly what it's going to be called, or I don't know exactly what it will be called, branded in Lexus terms, but it is low, sleek, and a coupe, a two-seater with the longest hood in the world. It looks amazing. And for sports car fans who are watching this, you've probably seen YouTube footage of it running and testing. A lot of that's been popping up lately in camouflage colors. So waiting to hear some more details back from our friends Matt at Lexus here in the US, but I continue to hear rumors that this beautiful model, V8 powered, I don't know what the engine configuration is going to be from the videos that I've seen of it testing in private. It sounds a bit like a twin-turbo V8 instead of just a raw exhaust pipe V8 like we've had with the RCF GT3, but waiting to hear back from Lexus on if and when they might confirm it's going to race here and when it's going to test, but I keep hearing it might even be arriving this month, if not early next month here on our shores to go hit the important tracks it needs to hit to get ready to replace the RCF GT3 in 2026.
And that's when we'll have photographers from all the different racing publications like yours trying to chase down pictures of that beautiful new car setting its pace at tracks all across America. Well, Marshall, thank you for stopping by for our first IMSA Endurance podcast. Remember, you can check out Marshall at This Week in Sports Cars with his mate, Graham Goodwin. Marshall, thanks for stopping by. I know the disco ball is ready to start flashing down in Daytona. Excitement is just pegging as we get ready for the Rolex.
Here's a little preview. Always try and do things in 10-year increments and such. So this year for the disco ball, we're going back to Kremer's 1995 win. So we'll have a disco ball rolling yet again for more than 24 hours. It's a 24-hour racing party. So that's why we break out the disco ball every year at Daytona.
All right. Thanks, pal. Well, what a fun show. Thanks to Colin Braun, PJ Hyett, Austin Cindric, and Marshall Pruett for stopping by on the very first IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. And when you're looking at 2025, looking back at 24, there's just so much excitement with the competition, new teams, new sponsors, record crowds last year, and all those trends we're expecting to see even more so in 2025, taking it up a notch. For more impactful podcasts covering IMSA, check out our friends from the paddock This Week in Sports Cars with Marshall Pruett and Graham Goodwin, Double Stint with John DeGeese and Jonathan Grace, and Hindy's Midweek Motorsports Podcast. Don't forget to go to your favorite podcast destination to lock us in, or go to YouTube and subscribe to the IMSA channel so you don't miss any IMSA coverage over the next 12 months. Coverage kicks off for Michelin Pilot Challenge on Friday, 1:30 p.m. on Peacock for 4 hours of great endurance racing. Then Saturday, the Rolex 24. Coverage begins on NBC at 1:30 p.m. Thanks for listening and also watching along on YouTube. This hour has certainly flown by. So much fun looking ahead to the season, but stop back after the Rolex so we can break down this year's Rolex 24 and looking ahead to the rest of the 2025 season. Thanks for listening and watching here on the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast.